Welcome to the channel and welcome to today's run through of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates, keeping you right up to date with everything. I'm Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Let's jump straight into it. So loads to go through today. So let's kick off with the latest regarding the Viktor Gyökeres story, because that story is not going anywhere. If anything, it's starting to pick up a little bit more momentum. So Fabrizio Romano said in the last 48 hours, Manchester United, Al Hilal and Juventus called Viktor Gyökeres' agent. It is not a priority for player to accept Al Hilal's proposal. So if you remember yesterday's video, if you watched that, the report was that Al Hilal were going to turn their attention to Viktor Gyökeres after they missed out on Victor Osimhen, and it was swiftly rejected by Viktor Gyökeres, and Romano kind of confirming the same thing, but also interesting that he's kind of doubling down and that we have made contact with Viktor Gyökeres in the last 48 hours, and the agent, meaning that, you know, there's no smoke without fire. You don't start contacting agents if you're not, you know, looking to maybe see the parameters of a deal. Romano also said, though, that in the last few hours, Manchester United called Juventus and he actually said, in the last few hours, Manchester United, Juventus and Al Hilal called the agent of Viktor Gyökeres. With UEFA Champions League football, I'm 99% convinced that Manchester United were going to close the Gyökeres deal quite quickly. That was the feeling. Now, that's interesting as well from Romano for multiple reasons, like holy shit. Effectively, what he's saying is that if United had qualified for the Champions League, he's 99% convinced we would have moved on Viktor Gyökeres quickly. That was the feeling. Now, it's not necessarily suggesting because of the Champions League football, it's because of the budget, which means if you're that close to getting a deal done, or if you're that close to, you know, speaking to an agent or speaking to a player, that Romano's saying he's 99% convinced that the deal would have been done had we qualified for the Champions League. It just seems that we're just waiting for the money. We're either waiting for the squad space or waiting for the money or waiting to get the Mbeumo deal done. So that is over the line. And then it looks more and more likely we might then be moving towards Viktor Gyökeres. Whether that depends on player sales, we'll have to wait and see. I think it might depend on the upfront fee we also have to pay for Mbeumo, but that's, you know, that's really interesting. So it does. So Romano saying, you know, if we beat Spurs, he's convinced we would have already potentially had or gone for Viktor Gyökeres already, which is insane. And that suggests that that's a budgeting issue, not a player issue or anything of that nature. It's just literally we need the budget or we need the squad space in order to get that deal kind of done. Ben Jacobs, who's been spot on recently, saying that Viktor Gyökeres is a player on Manchester United's list and Gyökeres is open to moving even without Champions League football. Sporting do not have any formal bids yet, but are expecting a sale around 70 million euros, which is 59 million pounds as well, which is, I think, would be a good deal for somebody of Viktor Gyökeres' quality and obviously his goal-scoring record as well. Record, though, we're saying that Viktor Gyökeres is furious with Sporting for not honouring their agreement to allow a move for 60 million euros plus 10 million euros in add-ons. They now value him at 80 million euros. The player has removed references to Sporting from his Instagram, so he's taken away any reference to Sporting on his Instagram because apparently he had a gentleman's agreement with Sporting to be sold for 60 plus 10 million as add-ons. But now that there's a genuine interest, and obviously now it's crunch time in the transfer market, Sporting apparently saying, no, we want the 80 million pounds, which has left Viktor Gyökeres absolutely foaming, which it would do if you'd stayed for a season and not got a move last summer based on the premise that you would be sold if clubs come in for certain prices and then the club turn their back on him. You know, that is going to, and that's, you know, yeah, that would piss you off, wouldn't it, if you were a player, if you were a Viktor Gyökeres as well. But yeah, that's going to be really interesting because he may end up having a hand in a transfer request, but then whether he'd sacrifice some money in order to do that, who knows? But it's interesting. Simon Jones, however, though, is saying that Manchester United are maintaining contact with Viktor Gyökeres as they try to secure their main targets. The club have made initial contact with Sporting, and Gyökeres believed to have a 85 million euro release clause. He has a gentleman's agreement with Sporting to leave for 58 million pounds this summer. So Simon Jones kind of confirming the stories as well, that we're maintaining contact with Gyökeres as we try to secure other targets, i.e. Bryan Mbeumo, and that he does have that kind of gentleman's agreement as well. So all roads are pointing towards we want to get Mbeumo done because that's the priority is at the moment is getting Mbeumo, because I think there's more interest in Mbeumo from other teams like Newcastle, Arsenal, Tottenham. So we want to get that deal secured potentially, and then either with budgeting, we might need to sell some players. Who knows? We'll have to see how it ultimately plays out. But then once we get Mbeumo done, it looks like all roads are pointing towards potentially Gyokeres would be the next player that we're gonna kind of put all our attention to as well, which still feels insane to me to think that we might potentially be in a position where we get Cunha, Mbeumo, and Gyokeres. Ben Jacobs again said that Manchester United will focus on outgoings before going for a number 9. Expect the Viktor Gyökeres saga to carry on until July. Manchester United are in no rush. So if United are in no rush to get Gyökeres, that suggests that maybe and Gyökeres is cool to wait. Then that's fine. You know, it's great to get early deals. And I think we've got a bit carried away with this transfer window because we signed Cunha on day 1, day 2, Bruno stayed, day 3, we're in for Mbeumo. And we're like, holy shit, this is like insane. But the reality is transfers do take time. Negotiations do take time. We need to sell players and create squad space and get money in and free up wages and all of that stuff still as well. So, you know, as long as they're done before pre-season, a majority of the transfers, and pre-season, I think our first game is like on the 19th of July. So we're still at the beginning of June. So there's plenty of time to get these deals done. It's just annoying as a fan. You just want to, like, I want to get excited. This is the transfer window. This is where, you know, all the stories are and all the links. And I love this sort of shit. I love transfer talk and rumors and signing players and stuff. I think it's really exciting. But Ben Jacobs bringing us back down to earth, saying we'll focus on outgoings before a number 9, and we're in no rush necessarily. I think it would be different though if a team did bid for, make an official move or bid for Gyokeres. I think that's maybe why we're keeping in contact, just to see what's going on, if there's been any movement. And I think it'd be interesting to see what happened if PSG, for example, did actually make a formal approach for Gyokeres, or Arsenal if they don't get Benjamin Sesko. Would that then change our approach? Would we then kind of dive on that deal? Potentially, but we'll need to kind of keep an eye on it and see how it kind of goes. But, you know, it's looking more and more likely as the days go on. Give us your thoughts on Gyokeres in the comments. Now, in terms of other targets, if we do miss out on Gyokeres, Graham Bailey, who can be hit and miss, though, saying that Jason Wilcox and Christopher Vivell are working closely with Ruben Amorim for the new number 9 for Manchester United. Players like Viktor Gyökeres, Jean-Philippe Mateta are on the list, but also Moise Kean, Tammy Abraham, and Dusan Vlahovic as well. I think Ben Jacobs has kind of said we might be interested in or looking at Ekitike as well. So there are other options. It's just it seemed that Viktor Gyökeres is seen as the top target at the moment as well. Mateta, don't know where he might be. There's rumours that he might be getting a new or signing a new contract at Palace to help them in their first season in the Europa League as well. Moise Kean, I know some of you have mentioned in the comments as well, would be an interesting option. Tammy Abraham would be not sure how I'd feel about that. And Vlahovic is on an absolute wedge at Juventus, and not for me personally. Thank you very much. But they are alternative options. Now, one alternative option could potentially be Victor Osimhen, now that his move to the Saudi Pro League has completely collapsed. Now, the Gazette was saying that Victor Osimhen dreams of signing for Manchester United. United are now working on a strategy to sign him this summer. No official offer has been made yet. So according to the Gazette, who I would say, you know, they're fairly decent, but I would take it with a pinch of salt that Victor Osimhen dreams of signing for Manchester United. If he dreams of signing for Manchester United, then maybe he would have to take or accept some kind of pay cut in order to get that move done, because that's the problem with Victor Osimhen. Is the salary. I don't know if United want to break their kind of wage structure in order to get Osimhen. But yeah, we'll need to keep an eye on that one. It's another daily Osimhen story. The Gazette were also saying that Manchester United are evaluating the possibility of making an offer to Napoli for Victor Osimhen, offering Joshua Zirkzee as part of the deal. Now, that would be a turn up for the books, because the belief has always been, you know, we've heard stories about swap deals, even though swap deals don't happen, involving, you know, Garnacho and Osimhen and Højlund and Osimhen as well. Joshua Zirkzee is part of the deal as well. You know, we'll have to see how that kind of plays out. That feels, you know, a little bit more kind of clickbaity to me, but it would be really interesting if Osimhen dreams of playing for United. You know, while he's still on the market, we're always going to get links with him. I think this is because it's an open race. The door's still open for Osimhen. It's just, you know, we seem more likely to be going for Gyokeres once we get Mbeumo over the line. That's the way it kind of feels at the moment. But never say never in the transfer market. Someone else could go in for Gyokeres, and then we might have to switch attention to someone else. Someone might offer us a massive amount for Garnacho, gives us more money, and then gives us more wiggle room. Saudi might come in for Casemiro, that frees up more wages. There's loads of different scenarios that could play out, but I would say let's take that with a pinch of salt for now, personally. But I'll bring you any updates when they come out. Give us your thoughts on that in the comments, though, below. Now, player we just mentioned there, the one we are mainly concentrating on is Bryan Mbeumo. So what's the latest there? So Mark Ogden was saying that Manchester United are prioritising Bryan Mbeumo before focusing on a possible transfer of Viktor Gyökeres. That's what we've just kind of mentioned. Ben Jacobs was saying that Manchester United are about to submit their second bid for Bryan Mbeumo. The Bryan Mbeumo deal hasn't been delayed. It's just in a state of conversation between clubs before Manchester United make the new bid. They are confident it will satisfy all parties involved. So Ben Jacobs saying there's not been any hold up. We're just in discussions, working out the kind of finer details of that deal. And then hopefully, this deal can get kind of put over the line. Got to remember, it's only been really like a week since Bryan Mbeumo's come with us, and sometimes transfers take a bit of time to negotiate all these sort of things as well. Like I said, I think we just got a bit giddy with the Cunha one, but Cunha we were actually working on for a few weeks beforehand as well, and that's just football. David Ornstein, though, who's the one I would pay attention to, said that there could be developments in Manchester United's pursuit of Bryan Mbeumo this week. United made an opening offer that valued Mbeumo at 45 plus 10 million in add-ons, but that was below the level of fee it would take for Brentford to sell, and discussions continue. So David Ornstein saying there could be some developments on that this week, even though technically the transfer window closes today. It's open again on Monday. You're still going to have negotiations and talks. It means nothing whether the transfer window's open or not. We were in negotiations with Cunha way before the transfer window was even open, so it makes zero difference in terms of that. And it's been a bit weird with Mbeumo because we had some reports today saying nothing's going to happen, and then these kind of stories saying it might happen as well. Again, I think everyone's just kind of guessing. That's the way I kind of read it between the lines, because Steve Railston was saying that United would still like to get a deal for Mbeumo wrapped up as soon as possible, and confirmation of a second bid could arrive shortly after the window opens again on June 16th. So, and Steve Railston is a fairly decent source from the Manchester Evening News as well, potentially saying that it might drag on until next week. But main thing is, still in talks, still in negotiations. It could be any day. It could be any moment when we get a here we go. And as long as we get that here we go, then it's cool. I don't really care when the deal actually gets finalised. Like I said, as long as we get all the transfers and signings in before pre-season, that's the kind of key for me. But yeah, give us your shouts on Mbeumo in the comments. Now, interestingly though, Ben Jacobs said that Manchester United are a lot more active in this stage of the transfer window than in previous years. They won't be in a mad rush, however, to find players in every position. The priorities are Mbeumo, a striker, possible solution for Højlund, then a midfielder, defensive signings. Possible new goalkeeper will come later in the window. So Ben Jacobs, which is encouraging actually to say that United are way more active in the transfer window than in previous years. I think that's telling, because we've signed, Cunha on the opening day, obviously in negotiations with Mbeumo, in talks with Gyokeres to work out to make sure we're in the loop around that situation as well. Working on obviously exits behind the scene. So actually, yeah, I do think we're kind of like normally we're very slow and nothing really happens until July. You might get a few sniffs of a player here and there, but actually, yeah, I would say that this is surprisingly quick for United being linked with all these players. And then interestingly, mentioned a midfielder, defensive signings, and possibly a new goalkeeper that will come later in the window. So let's go through some updates on regarding other targets. So Sky was saying that Tottenham have been stepping up their interest in Antoine Semenyo, but Manchester United are still admirers despite the Mbeumo bid. Now that might be a backup to maybe if we don't get Mbeumo, maybe we would go for Semenyo. I can't see us getting both. If we get both, that's a hell of a lot of money. And one of them's playing at wing back, in my opinion. You can't get Cunha, Mbeumo, and Semenyo for two number 10 positions. One of them's playing at wing back, where Mbeumo might play at right wing back, or Semenyo would probably be the more realistic one for me, playing at wing back. But I think that would maybe be an alternative, that if we don't get the Mbeumo deal done, then maybe Semenyo could be the backup to Mbeumo. And Simon Jones from the Mail is a good source, said a similar thing as well, that Manchester United have posted an interest in Bournemouth winger Antoine Semenyo, but face competition from Tottenham. So I think there's either one of two things. Either we're keeping an eye on that as a backup just in case the Mbeumo deal does go south, or we're being linked by an agent to say we're interested to get more money out of Tottenham, who might probably be more interested in Semenyo. One of those two, in my opinion. The other position, as mentioned by Ben Jacobs before, that might not be to the end of the window, there was the goalkeeper situation. So this is a very good South American journalist saying that if Manchester United sell Andre Onana, they will go all out for Emi Martinez. No smoke without fire with Martinez. I think the four main players I would say that we're linked with, obviously Cunha's done, Mbeumo we're in negotiations with, Gyokeres we're having talks with, and Martinez are the four main names. Whether we're going to get them all or not, who knows? But they're the kind of main names that I think are linked with it to us by the most credible kind of outlets as well. So that's not going anywhere. A lot of that will depend on selling Onana, and at the moment there's no real links with selling Onana. So we need to wait and see what happens there. I think the Muppeteers actually were saying the other day that's more likely by Indigos than Onana. So does that mean we can't get Martinez and Onana as a 1 and 2, or can you? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But the other name that keeps cropping up in the last couple of days has been Donnarumma. So Manchester United have inquired about Donnarumma through his agents. Now that came from Julian Lorenz, who's actually a good French journalist as well. So again, another kind of decent source suggesting that United have maybe made inquiries for Donnarumma. This still feels like agent talk to me though, because Donnarumma's potentially going to be in contract negotiations with PSG over a new contract. But then also PSG might be linked with Chevrolet as well. We were obviously linked with Chevrolet yesterday, along with Man City. So it's a bit of a confusion situation regarding the goalkeepers. But we'll keep an eye on it. It's another link with Donnarumma. Whether we could afford him, and again, whether we're going to break our wage structure to go for someone like Donnarumma, because he is going to cost a lot of money in terms of salary, and obviously transfer fee. Who knows what PSG are going to ask for him as well? He's a Champions League winner now, so keep an eye on that one. But again, no more reports, more kind of decent sources again linking us with Donnarumma as well. So pay attention to that one for you. Give us your thoughts in the comments. But a lot of our transfer business is going to be dependent from now on sales, not necessarily because of the money, although that is obviously important. The more we generate in from income through sales, the more we can spend, which is great, but also squad space as well. So let's go through all the latest exit talk. So Antony, as we know, is a player that we're looking to move on. So although Bayern Leverkusen inquired about Alejandro Garnacho, Man United's asking price of at least £38 million makes the deal unlikely. So this came from Sport Bild, suggesting that Erik ten Hag has made inquiries. Why? How can Leverkusen not afford £38 million for Garnacho? By the way, they're about to sell Florian Wirtz for like 100-odd million quid. They've sold Frimpong for money as well. Like, how can they be that broke? That's just, I think, taking the piss. Like, if we just sold Bruno for £100 million, how much do you think Brentford would be asking right now from Mbeumo? Damn sight more than £60 million. I can pretty much guarantee you that. So how do they not have the money if they sell Florian Wirtz to go for like Garnacho? But anyway, they also said that if they pursue Antony, the deal could proceed as United want 21 to 25 million pounds. So, and I think that works out because when you take off his salary and stuff as well, that's probably about right. We would break about even, I think, with Antony for that. Might even make a couple of million quid, but it's about removing him from the squad, getting his wages off the bill, and also creating the space in the squad to bring other players in, I think. So that's an interesting one to keep an eye on. And obviously, we know Erik ten Hag loves signing his former players. So, surely they could afford it if they sell Florian Wirtz for 100-odd million. Like, that's ridiculous, in my opinion. But let's go through the Garnacho news. So if Garnacho does not want to move to Italy, his preference is to stay in the Premier League. Arsenal and Chelsea remain interested. Again, that came from a very good South American journalist, the same journalist that brought the story yesterday, linking Arsenal with Garnacho, but also confirming that he does not want to move to Italy. So whether that rules out a move to Napoli, obviously if that story is to be believed, he wants to stay in the Premier League. Romano was saying the same thing as well. Garnacho's priority is to play in the Premier League. Chelsea were interested in him, but Jamie Gittins is the priority now. Bayern Leverkusen have inquired about him, but we'll see if there are other English clubs that will enter the race in the coming days. So again, Romano was saying that Garnacho wants to potentially stay in the Premier League. We'll have to wait and see how that kind of develops. I think if we do sell him to a Premier League club, we're going to ask for, we need to ask for top dollar. But we need to wait and see what happens. Be interesting the Bayern Leverkusen one. I can kind of see maybe something there. But again, if Garnacho doesn't want to go abroad and wants to stay in the Premier League, we'll have to keep an eye on it. Ben Jacobs always saying that Alejandro Garnacho is open to all offers, not just Premier League. Napoli's valuation of him is £42 million, but Manchester United want a lot more and hope for a bidding war. And then Miguel Delaney via The Independent, who's a good source, said that Manchester United have set a £70 million price for Garnacho, amid mounting interest from a series of clubs, including Aston Villa and Bayern Leverkusen as well. So again, Leverkusen might be one to kind of watch. And again, we know that Erik ten Hag loves signing former players, so potentially that could be something there. If they get the money for Wirtz, I think they could definitely afford Garnacho, but it's whether Garnacho would want to go. But if we do get a bidding war, it's better for us, because the more money we can get for Garnacho, the more we're going to be able to spend, because it is homegrown profit. But we'll keep an eye on it and bring you any updates as they kind of come out. But it's good that he's got kind of multiple clubs interested in Garnacho. And the other player we're looking to move on potentially is Rasmus Højlund. So Graham Bailey said that Rasmus Højlund is attracting plenty of interest from Germany, with RB Leipzig, Eintracht Frankfurt and Bayern Leverkusen all interested in him. There we go, Erik ten Hag. He also has offers from Italy, with United wanting a permanent deal for him. Or Graham Bailey can be hit and miss though. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that one. Obviously, we know the most linked team for Rasmus Højlund at the moment is Inter. There's rumours of a loan with an obligation to buy, though, or an option to buy if he decides to go to Inter, or if we accept an offer from Inter Milan. Michael Critchley, though, from The Athletic, who is a really good source, said that Inter Milan hold a concrete interest in Rasmus Højlund, but the striker wants to stay and prove himself at Manchester United. And I think it was United District that did a story the other day. They're an aggregator account who are fairly decent when they come out with stuff as well, was suggesting a similar thing, that Rasmus Højlund might potentially want to stay and prove himself at United. Although if we get a striker in, and we've got Cunha and Mbeumo, both of who can play up front as well, I think Cheetah will be coming through. Xerxes, I think he'll have a lot on his plate next season to try and get into the team. We'll even get minutes off the bench as well, but we'll keep an eye on that one. And a good kind of Italian journalist, though, outlet was saying that the previous Juventus sporting director was working on a swap deal between Douglas Luiz and Rasmus Højlund before he was sacked. Now, we were linked, actually, Romano linked us with Douglas Luiz in January, and that is a name for the midfield that I'm kind of paying close attention to see whether we go back in for him, because if Romano said that we were interested in him in January, stands to reason that there might be interest there, and that wouldn't be a bad shout neither, to do some kind of swap involving Højlund and Douglas Luiz. Obviously, when I say swap, it's not a swap. I know that. Don't come at me in the comments. But we buy Luiz and then they buy Rasmus Højlund. I would be kind of down for doing something like that as well, because it kills two birds with one stone. We move on Rasmus, who I think does need to leave United. I think he's just, I think he's washed at United with his confidence and everything that's kind of happened. I think, some of the fans have started to turn on him as well. It's just going to get messy, I think, with Højlund, unless he starts banging in goal after goal next season. But then if he's not playing, how likely is that to kind of happen? But also Douglas Luiz, I think, would be a good shout for the midfield as well, to kind of come in as like an Eriksen replacement for like the box-to-box kind of role in midfield. So that would kill two birds with one stone, in my opinion. But we'll keep an eye on that one and wait and see if there's any kind of more credibility regarding that. But that was from a decent Italian kind of journalist as well. So give us your thoughts and your shouts on that in the comments below. Give us your thoughts on all the other topics discussed in today's video, because that's you all up to date with the latest news and transfer news. Smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. See you in the next one.